If it's good, I'll show them. And if it's not good, I'll delete it. It's just going to be that simple. And that's exactly how we're going to roll. And I apologize for shifting times as I find my groove with everything that I have on the go, that I may just keep this one in the evening once a month. That way Jill doesn't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning just for these Arizona people. Because it might be nice to have a nighttime one too, to pull us all together and stuff. And so rather than the Wednesday morning ones consistently. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but I just knew when my day started this morning, there was no way I was making 9:30 happen on my end. So, and I even struggled to make 7:30 happen on my end. So it's all good. It is all good. How many, Rose, I know you have a newsletter. Jen, no. Jam Guy, Deborah, no. Jill, do you have a newsletter going? No, or else I'd probably get it. That's what I thought. Okay, Sion, yes. How come I don't get
it? Now you're in trouble.
You have to sign up for it.
Oh, for Pete's sakes. Okay,
Cindy. I can send you a link. Well, if you would have one consistent email address.
Wow. Okay. That's not believe her.
Or because you commented on it. You sent me it back with a comment or something.
I might have gotten one, but I don't get it consistently then, I don't think. Because I usually do try and read them.
It's only once a month.
Well, then I don't know. I know I get Rose's. And then Cindy Rose, do you have one? No, not yet.
Not yet. In my past life, it was an essential part of my business. Essential. Follow up, things coming up, things that would apply for regulations to people, and it was essential.
So you found value in it in the past life. You just haven't implemented it in your current life. Is that what you're telling me?
In my current life, I do individual little, this is a really good price here, in the book, little tabs. It's very labor intensive, which is why I'm struggling and challenging with this Instagram program, the how-tos of, like, what's a hashtag and does the word go before it? Is it a space? All those silly things from people that grew up with the computer. It's old hand. To me, it's brand new.
And yeah, there's a lot to be said. Hashtags are a whole other story, and I would probably
even
have that.
How to post a video and what are these sites and It's a wonderful thing, but I'm so amped.
But and I think sometimes we overthink it too, because we think that what we're doing is not good enough, or we're not doing it how everybody else is doing it. And I think that that's where we do ourselves a disservice, right? Who cares how everybody else is doing it? The point is that we're trying and doing it, because it'll never be even my there's some Instagram accounts, not to take from this conversation of newsletters, but I go to and they're uniformed and pretty and da-da-da-da. And I'm like, oh, hell to the no. Because I know that I don't have time to be that consistent, and I choose Facebook as my main platform. And so therefore that's the one platform that I definitely try and pay my homage to and get things across. Newsletter wise though, it's interesting. Know that this is all personal, my personal opinion. And so, and I say that very quickly because, and Rose, I hope you chime in, because I know that you do this administratively for other people too, but I think everybody who markets has an opinion. All of us have an opinion per se, but everybody that markets has an opinion on how to make it happen, and I've had people push back on, a couple of the common things are, I don't want to add anybody unless I have their permission. Okay, well, and I understand that, and I can respect your position on that. But Paul, I think it depends on how we do it. If we're adding somebody and literally saying, buy my stuff now, here's my most recent sell, here's how you join my group, here's how you join my team, I agree. You're probably going to burn people out really quickly, and they're going to want to tap out, and you'll probably be registered as spam. But if you add people without permission and have the, hey, here's some value for you. Here's a quick little tip that I learned to make your day a little bit easier. Here's a link to an interesting conversation that I found value in. When you start adding people and providing value to their lives, most people won't push back against the ad. And so I think that becomes huge. Go, Sion.
Sometime in the last 2 weeks, we had somebody add us to their newsletter without even talking to us about it, but at every email address that they found for us. So it's like, I see it at least 4 times, the same one. Enough.
Well, and I agree. And so therefore, and I agree 100% in that aspect, but I preach that add them and let them know that there's always an opt out on every one of them. Because if you're waiting for permission or that double opt in aspect, a lot of people are absolutely lazy, number one. Number two, they won't take the extra time to do it. And I also, again, think it depends on what we're sharing and what we're putting out there. Rose, your thoughts on this? Because I know that you're.
So the reason why sometimes you're stuck in a multiple, like you have multiple addresses in there, is because the person who's dedicated to looking at the contact list isn't paying attention. Because I see it too, where I've got 4 different emails between Gmail, Hotmail, and Yahoo. Okay, but I'll see the same message across all 4 of my accounts, and it's like, folks, you don't see that Rose Fico is the same person, but you just kind of changed it up a little bit, and you know, just so merge them or add them all as one. And because there's no dedicated person who's actually watching the list, it's being thrown in there. So how many people do you have on your list? Oh, I got thousands. Well, no, you don't. You probably have 500, and there's duplicates and triples of each name. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
And I also think,
agree with you. I agree with you, Cheryl, with the, so when I meet someone or someone gives me their business card, you've pretty much given me permission to call you or email you, right? And normally when I get a business card, I'll say to them, do you mind if I add you to my distribution list? I send out something once a month. I don't bombard, blah, blah. And I say, and you can opt out. Like the minute you see it, you can opt out and unsubscribe. It's no big deal. And usually they'll say, yeah, sure, go ahead. And then if they do decide that after a couple, whatever, they'll opt out. But my rate for opt-outs is so minimal on all accounts, my clients and my personal business.
yeah, and I agree with you 100%. And ultimately, it's funny how many people will email me or message me on Messenger and say, I sent out my newsletter today and 5 people opted out. And I'm like, let them go, because chances are good they weren't going to do business with you either.
Exactly.
And number 2, it's not a personal thing. It could just be them being overwhelmed by their inbox, and therefore let them just pace out.
Or it could be your administrator is in your email and they're not paying attention, right? So it's like, oh, you know, this person probably doesn't want it. Like if someone else is doing your, you know what I mean? You're checking your emails. It's not actually you.
Yeah, true. Ghost Young, yeah.
Our annual ones are done through iContact, and we, because of the Castle law, there is no option. You have to, the first thing that gets sent is they have to opt in.
So, and
then with that, then if you met someone, my first thing would be to send them the note and say, hey, do you want in? Yeah. You know, whether it's on a general account, on a specific promotion.
It ends up in spam a lot of times. So people ask me for it, and I have to then go over to my email and email them saying, I just sent it. If you don't see it,
yeah. Well, and funny enough, it's true, because my Cheryl at Embrace and Become goes to Deb Salmons' spam every damn time. I have to go and message her. Yeah, see, I have to go message her and say, hey, I just emailed you, look for it. Or if it's not pressing, I know eventually she'll check. So it's all good. I let her go. And so that's very good. That's such a huge point that way with all the spam filters and stuff. And MailChimp, Constant Contact, all of them have the opportunity to set it up for double opt-in, was what I call it per se. But I'm with you, Rose. Like if you put your email out there to God's green earth, as far as I'm concerned, it's there for the taking 120%. And there's some that I will even preface. If I think that they're going to be like a news media contact, I'll even use a personal experience. I won't add them to my newsletter list. That's a lie. I will add them to my newsletter list, but before my newsletter goes out, I send them a private email, like as in a one-on-one, especially if they're news media, because they stand to be big players in my world. And so it's literally, you know what, I stumbled across your email address, love that you work for the media, and love that you're a voice for people, and I've added you to my newsletter list, and I'd love to stay in touch. And that way I've already dripped on them more and fuzzy, so that when they get it, they're already looking for it, right? They're emotionally invested in it, or they're at least knowing that it's coming their direction. I don't ask for permission.
You can also be selective, right? So you don't have to call out to everyone. You just call out to those that you know that you're either going to do business with, or they'll potentially be your client somehow, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
So I don't want one, thanks.
And then, yeah, she's feeding one of the girl. Yeah, no kidding. Between you and the cat and her and her chipmunk. And then what it also comes down to, so I don't ask for permission. I add everybody, and building our newsletter list is huge as far as I'm concerned. Facebook goes down tomorrow. Some of us are out of business. beyond a doubt, or Instagram or whatever platforms we're using, right?
Or the internet in as a whole.
What's that?
Or the internet, the whole internet.
Yeah,
Do
we're
you know what I
done.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
who's to say?
Because
right?
we haven't collected data anywhere and we haven't grabbed data anywhere. And I'm here to say that is your goal as business owners, even if you add one email address a day, 365 contacts at the end of the year. And then after 3 years, you're all over 1,000. Go ahead, Rose.
So when someone asks me, oh, should I do a newsletter? My first question to them is, how many people are you talking to? If you're less than 50, don't go making it a career to waste that much time on a newsletter. If you've got over 50 to 100 or more, yeah, then you want to be a little bit more detailed, whatever. I mean, I have a client, she literally has 40 people. And I keep saying to her, are we going to make this grow? Like, can we do something about it? And she's like, yeah, no, I'm good. And it's like, well, I know you're good. I said, but you understand how much, like, even if I put in an hour, it's because it's sectioned, right? So she's a real estate agent, we talk real estate, then she wants me to put in a recipe, then she wants me to put in, you know, the news for, it takes time, right? So even within that hour, you've just spent an hour's worth of work for 30 to 40 people. Is it worth it? You need to figure that out. If it's not, just because everyone else is doing a newsletter doesn't mean everyone needs a newsletter, right?
That's true. And it's kind of goes to what Sion said too. If you're saying the same thing consistently every freaking newsletter, tap out at some point, or do it once a month, or do it once a quarter even. You know, if you don't find you have any kind of robust content or value. Go ahead, Sion. Yeah.
So our newsletter is created by Annual Head Office, but then there's a section at the bottom where we can fill in what we want. And I find that so like if I'm doing a demo for people, and it's a lot of new people that I've never met before, on our order form, there is a little section, you know, please add me to your newsletter list. But I find that a lot of people say to me, wait, how much? I said, it goes out once a month, maybe twice a month if there's an extra special or something like that. And they're like, oh, okay, because they're tired of getting like Old Navy spammed.
Yeah. But that being said, Old Navy, Darren Hardy, John C. Maxwell, Mel Robbins, like all of those guys sends emails consistently. And I'm telling you, they've paid professional marketing gurus to do that. So there's something to be said for consistent messages, hitting inboxes where you and I are like, oh, hell to the no, this is way too much. There's obviously some metric there that says to these greats and these people that pay thousands of dollars for marketing people that are proving that it's worth it to constantly keep hitting at people. And so I'm not saying any of us need to up our frequency by a long shot because we're too small. But by the same token, I'm also saying that some of us hold back thinking that we're bothering people and or that they don't want another email from me. Or like say I do a robust email and then I think, dang it, I forgot to announce this event. And sometimes you could second guess yourself, like they just got one. Do I want to send one so soon again? Where when you start thinking like that, you are censoring on behalf of your audience. It's not your job to decide whether they want it or not. It's your job to put the messages out. And it becomes a huge thing in all of our brains. All of us are saying like, well, I wouldn't want to get that. Okay, well, that's you. But you can't make the decision for me. Like if Rose puts out like a whole bunch of Fiscotti emails and then all of a sudden puts out something that she's thinking of doing a new flavor with caramel and chocolate and raspberries, I'm just saying out loud, then I may be interested in that second email even on the exact same day because it provides value to me. It's triggering me. It's something that I want. Where a lot of people will sit there and say, I don't want to send this out a second time because it may not be advantageous for me to push it out again because you're already thinking like you're thinking like yourself rather than like your potential customer. And it becomes huge that way. Go ahead, Rose. Yeah.
I think a lot. So I do for several clients. I have one client who actually, we do one together, so it's more personable. And then she does one through Desjardins Financial Wealth, whatever. And it's automated, right? It's all that cookie jar cut up stuff, right? And I'll hear the clients, because I do a lot of client management with her, and I'll hear them send me emails. It's like, oh, you know, I so prefer your email to the to the cookie jar one because it's like, okay, I get it. I know you want to sell me something. You don't necessarily want to sell me something. And if you do, I've got to read into it. And it's like, yeah, I need estate planning. Because I mean, how fun can you make financial planning? You've got to really go hard on it, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, estate planning, all of that good stuff. But I've seen so many people, like she's got about over 200 people on her, you know, as clients. And it's funny getting responses from them. And it's like, you know what, the personal aspect of it. And that's what I always say, make it personable. Like I might talk about cookies, but I also talk about stuff that's been happening to me, or I'm giving a shout out to someone, or do you know what I mean? Like I make it fun. I don't want it to be all too business like, because people, what do? You scan through it, right? And if something kind of catches your eye, you'll read it, and then after that it's like, yeah, forget it. So you've missed the whole point on someone who put so much effort into building that newsletter, right?
Well, and I
this
think
is
that brings up the next point, as in what is our intentions of having a newsletter? What are some of the, when we read newsletters, why are we reading them, number one? And number two, what are some of the benefits to us actually putting out a newsletter? And I tell you, the very first thing I think of is all the times that we see in Alcona Chats, which is a chat group up here for the community, Jill. So it'd be much like Peoria, Glendale. We see in those things all the time, basically someone saying, hey, I forgot who was doing this. When I see that, I cringe, because in my mind, that business owner isn't gathering data, isn't staying in touch with people, and isn't staying consistent in being out in front of the crowd, right? But what can newsletters do for us? So apart from that, I send a newsletter. I have never asked for a dime in our newsletters. And so I can tell you our newsletter, well, that's a lie, I guess, when we were doing the magazine. But I use our newsletters to say, this is what's going on and you need to be part of it. That's my intention with the newsletters, as in pulling the community together with one place for them to look instead of looking over 7,000 different websites for information. But anybody else, what else? Rose, your intention is?
It's more to give you flavors, like because I keep saying, oh, you know, we're doing a monthly theme, whatever. It's more about the flavors, or it's about the occasion, right? Hey, what are you doing for Christmas? Hey, what are you doing for St. Patrick? Blah, blah. So I just want to give you the idea, right, of what's out there.
Yeah, huge. And Sion, what's your company one is?
Well, there's always a monthly special, so that's incorporated, but it's not always the main focus. Like if sometimes it's how to use an item, or you know, like when COVID first started, it was more, hey, you know what, we're here for you, reach out to us if you have questions about how to clean. So they do a good job of not always having it be buy.
Yeah, huge that way. What are some of the ones that we read? Jen, whose do you read? You don't read any for real? Jerk. No.
I skim through them, I'll be honest, but I don't really read a lot of them. I'll be honest.
No, that's cool, and I appreciate that. But you don't
unless
opt
it's
them either.
The only ones I really like read are like ones that may have a coupon or something, to be honest.
Okay, no, that's huge.
And that's what you're looking for, right? So
That's what I want. That's what
Yeah.
I'm keeping it for, is if
And
there's
so
an
you're not-
offer or a coupon or something.
Good. Deb, which ones do you read? You're muted now. Unmute yourself. You were opposites. No.
There you
There you go. No, you're muted again. You're muted. There you go.
What I look at is information. So if I read my genealogy, I'm looking for new places, whatever. If I'm looking at financials or accounting or taxes, it's always about what can I learn, or how do I share it, or something in the lines of that. I don't like being sold, and I don't want to sell in my newsletters, because I don't like to be sold, or tapping. I feel like I'm turning them upside down and shaking their pockets out when I read buy this or buy that. But so that's when I could do information. I can't see myself in a salesperson's position. I see sharing information and creating a desire of, I need more information about this.
Okay, huge. That's good. Cindy, what about you? What ones do you open up and read?
Like they're saying, the value added, coupon, a referral gift, but it would be to my people that I'm still on the small scale thinking of it. I'm thinking of the old way of sending it. And again, it's just a matter of preparing an ear, and it reaches a whole new audience. Am I prepared for that?
Good for you. Good question that way. Jill, do you have certain ones that you read and don't read, my friend?
Most of the newsletters that I get are from my design business because they share the value of the information that that I need for like different companies that are doing print on demand and like this company has changed their format, so now your files need to be sent like this. And then I try to read as many other newsletters as I can on social media and marketing and that, just to try to stay on top of things, but it can get overwhelming at some point. You need to know where to cut it off.
It's true. You can sign up for thousands of them, that's for sure. And so what I hear you saying though is you look at the educational based ones more
Yeah.
so than anything else. Which
And
go
a
ahead.
lot of times they'll along with the educational materials, they're always putting in something personable about themselves, and I think that that's what people are looking for. They're wanting to relate to that personal experience.
Yeah, I think that's huge. And Jill's shaking her, or Rose is shaking her head too, because it's true. The personal touch, right? The experience that you're having in that aspect.
Well, I always say, you know what, come with me and, you know, be a part of my journey, right?
Yeah.
So how else? And then, but let me talk about you, because I always tell that story too, because the cookies, believe it or not, have a story, because I hear it all the time. Oh, you'll never believe we had the Scotties and blah, and so their story goes, right? You know, oh, I got a call from Scotland. The lady had to speak to me because she had to tell me a story about the cookies. Like, what? So I got to talk about that, because it's like, what? You can appreciate this, and because we're all relatable if we actually communicate. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, Rose, you know, thanks for sharing that, because I would have said the same thing. You know, you always find a common ground, right?
Yeah, it's huge
Yeah.
that way.
I also think that because of COVID and everybody being on lockdown, that we're all looking for that personal experience to be able to share with other people,
Yeah.
so that we're not left thinking, oh my God, I'm the only one going through this right now.
Yeah.
When you read about other people's experiences and their personal experiences, it really hits home and you can relate to that. And once you create a relationship with that person, it can go nowhere but forward.
It's
Building
true.
a
It's
rapport,
huge.
right? And that's my biggest thing too.
What's
right?
that, Rose?
Building the rapport.
Yeah. Build
So
a
like
report. And what I don't read today, I may read tomorrow. And what I
Right,
don't read this month, I may read next month.
Well, the thing, and exactly. So if I am getting like stuff like from you, from whatever, and if I don't have the time to read it, I always actually make the time. It's like, okay, I know when I'm going to read it. You know what I mean? It's my morning coffee read, right? And that's how I go on with my day. And that's what makes it worth you making that newsletter, because someone's actually said, no, I'm not going to read now, but I will read it, you know? And so that's building rapport.
Yeah, and it's funny because Susie Rollins, so Joe probably knows her as a Mary Kay rep in Arizona, but she always says, I'm not getting anything out of my newsletter. And my question back is, what are we hoping to get out of it?
Exactly.
And that becomes a huge thing. And not to mention, it's kind of like, so statistically, the throw marketing statistics here, they say that anything over a 17% open rate is bang good. And so that's the industry average. Anything over 17% is good. So therefore, when you're sending out 200 emails, and if you only have 34 people open it, you and I would be like, what the hell? But by the same token, from a demographic marketing standpoint, they say that that's phenomenal. We're rocking our world, and we're exactly where the rest of the industries are when it comes to that. And then, what's that?
It's funny you say 17%.
Yeah.
Because I always tell my clients, you know what, once you've hit 30, like once you're over 30, you're rocking and rolling.
Yeah,
oh,
it's
you
true.
kidding me? No, that's so low. And it's like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm always aiming for the 40, 50, right? Because you want at least to get a half, right? And trust me, there are some times when I'm looking at the insights, it's like, what? There's 70%. I don't even want to tell that to the gurus, the marketers who are telling me 17%, right?
I know. And I hate when you get a high one, because then like
Yeah,
the bar rises.
You want, right? You
Yeah.
want the next one to be just as high, right?
Yeah, and then it messes with my brain the next couple
Right?
of months, right? It's
What
true.
didn't I say? What did I say? What didn't I say?
Yeah, and that's huge too, and we're coming back to that. But also when it comes to, they say Tuesdays at 9:30 Eastern time. So Jill, Tuesdays at 12:30, or not 12:30 Eastern time for you, but they say Tuesdays at 9:30, and whatever time zone you're in becomes the highest open rate. Crazy enough, they actually have it narrowed down to that. Wednesday mornings are the next highest open rate. And then Mondays and Fridays are the absolute worst time to send a newsletter, let alone the weekends, obviously. And
Unless it's raining and
good
you're
point.
going through, and unless it's COVID.
Yeah.
Because from March to June, I think from Monday to Sunday, it didn't matter what time people were reading because they had nothing else to do. And I
it's
think we
true.
got used to it. And it's like, oh no, we got to get back into the swing of Tuesday mornings and
Yeah, it's
find
true.
that,
And
right?
and I find the consistency does eventually pay off. People get to expect it, and make it come across that way. It's huge. And then that, no matter what system you use, whether Constant Contact is pretty huge down in the States, Carta, Infusionsoft, MailChimp, they all drive the same. It's just kind of like when you get into a car, they all drive the same, but they all have reports, and they all have the ability for, if you put different links in, you are absolutely able to see what people are gravitating towards. So if I put a link in about a youth program versus an entrepreneurship program versus a political something that's going on politically, and you can literally tell who's gravitating towards what. And when you start watching some of those, it becomes huge. And I think that that's where sometimes, and Facebook does the exact same thing, God love them. And I've had people say that, my page isn't doing anything. And when they make me admin on their page, and I see that the ultimate time for them to be posting is 7:30 at night, but they're putting all their posts up at 9, 10 in the morning. Okay, well then that's where your biggest issue is, when you should schedule it when your audience is going to be there. And a lot of people don't look at the insights. They just think it's going to magically work for them, when the metrics and numbers are there to make it work and to make it be found. And then also when it comes to the newsletter stuff, it's the same principle. If we're not really giving them anything to click through on, for lack of better words, then there's no way for us to really be able to gauge what is in fact working and what isn't working if it just becomes a read-only platform. And I advocate that we should have a couple of click-throughs there, and that what an opportunity to drive traffic to your social media, if that's the platform you're hoping to build, and or a website platform, if that's also where you're trying to get traction and get things going. And same as asking questions becomes huge. I like to say that we get what we give. And that's why I'll tell you, and those who have sent out newsletters will know that they'll sit in my inbox forever until I get to them. And then I try and validate them all. And that being said, I think it's also huge as us business owners. It's kind of like when we get one in, for us to be able to in turn validate the person who sent it becomes huge, because it's that 3-second email that just says, great read, thanks. Even if you just skimmed it over. But going out perception wise, it's like, wow, they actually cared about the content coming into their inbox, and that's from me. And then it's like, wow, I have a relationship with this person. And then it opens up a whole other door. And I think the other thing, and when it comes to newsletters, that we tend to overthink is that we don't know what to put in them. And God love you for having that thought process. Because in my opinion, and Rose is a champ when it comes to content too, even if you put, hey, it's a new month and I'm hoping you hit your goals and succeed this month, and just know that I'm cheering you on, and let me know where I can find you on social media. There's a newsletter. Done. Click. Let it go. Where all of us are thinking that our newsletter has to be so much more than just that personal touch. Like Jill said, everybody's jonesing for the personal touch anyway, right? But even just that short little newsletter, or a crazy month for me, I don't have much to share this month, but I wanted to let you know that I'm absolutely still here, and this is the different places you can find me. Click, let it go.
I always tell someone who's if you're doing a monthly newsletter, keep tabs on what you've done for the month, right? Because that'll give you something to talk about, right? So if you had a good month, you had a crappy month, you had a personal bummer month, you know what, even if you had a personal bummer month, people actually will listen and go, hey, you know what, I'm with you right there, me too. How are we going to make it better? You know, again, showing your authentic self, showing your side that, you know, you're not being superhuman, you're just keeping it real.
And there's a difference between, hey, I've had a crappy month, period. Hey, I've had a crappy month, buy from me and help me.
Well, yeah, right.
So I wanted to clarify that.
See, I wouldn't even have gone that way. I would have said something like, you ever had one of those days where, you know what I mean, and you kind of spell it out and say, yeah, well, that's what happened to me, and then I'll tell you my story, right? And then usually I'll just leave it at that and not ask for anything. Just go, hey, you know, how about you? And usually I'll get good chunk of, like, you know, a handful of people say, oh God, Rose, I love when you tell me something because you said exactly what I was thinking. And I just wanted to say it out loud. It's like, good, say it out loud.
Yeah,
It
it's
works. It helps.
it's funny enough, and only because Jill knows me from these days, but back in my Working the Gap days, which was my business in Arizona before I got detained, but back in my Working the Gap days, my subject heading on one of my emails was I quit. And it literally went down the path of I quit negativity, I quit giving up on myself and all that stuff. But I tell you that I quit one had like an 83% open rate. And I thought, you bastards are just waiting for me to quit. but same token, it was the subject line made all the difference in the world. And that
But I can't use the Scotty goes bananas all the time
Yeah.
because now everyone thinks I've lost it. I've just gone loopy. It's like, no, that's not what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's huge that way. And
Yeah.
consistency becomes like, well, I always put community connection on ours, like it's your community connection coming in, because that's what I'm trying to advocate and build. But the consistency becomes huge that way too. But when you mix it up a little bit, it's funny. Tony Robbins has been slammed. Anybody who's watched any of his stuff, he drops the F-bomb all the time. And
I
he's
love it.
slammed on that 1,000 times, as in, you know, and we even had, Jill and I have some mutual friends in Arizona that refuse to watch anything that has Tony Robbins involved in it, but literally because of his language. But he literally says that when he uses those words, it disrupts the brain flow and brings you back to attention, like it grabs you again. And I'm not suggesting that we all use foul language in our newsletters by any sense of the means, but changing the flow, changing the consistency up every once in a while attracts the attention. Well, go ahead, Rose, what were you going to say on that?
Because if you're trying to play up to an audience and you are trying to say something, whether it's funny, comical, or and you're not getting their response, you're not getting them to laugh or whatever, you throw off the F-bomb, right? It's the same kind of concept. It's like, oh, now you get it. Ha, ha, ha. But, you know, and it's funny, Tony Robbins, I almost feel like he's hanging out with Gordon Ramsay, a couple of days a week, right? Because it's like, Gordon, he's done it, and I love him for it, because it's like, that's kind of me in the background going, what the? Right? But when you are trying to speak to a whole mass of people, I don't know if that's how Tony Robbins should be.
I agree.
Because I actually have lost credibility in what he has to say. Yes, when he came out back in the, I'm going to go 40s because it's been so long, right? When he came around, I would prefer to listen to Robin Sharma, you know, the man who sold the monk who sold his Ferrari, versus, because he's always been, consistent with his dialogue, with his speech. Tony Robbins, I feel like he's just, I don't know.
No, I agree. He goes overboard, but yet he claims that
But,
there's
he grasps the audience, right? He's getting
He
them.
takes a different, what I think he takes a different market that we're comfortable with, because if you look at certain groups, that's what they strive for. It's all about the hype, the whatever. So Tony
All about
Robbins,
the bells and whistles. It's all about the
exactly.
glitter and shine and
So
carry on.
depending on your market,
Yeah.
you have to decide what kind of market or audience that you want to gravitate to because of the wording, the terminology that you're using. So one of the things I had a really good conversation with my son when he was working on the SEEN program. And so when you look at targeting your audience or your market or try to bring some, see how things are going, it's all about what would prompt them to do an action. So it could be a word, could be experience, it could be, a memory. So when I kind of look at the newsletters, when I try to do the topics, I'm just trying to make are you aware of it? So when it comes to the newsletter, what do I want to bring out of the audience? Who am I targeting?
It also comes down to restructuring and not being as afraid of being repetitive in a different way. And it's like saying this, you can say the same things 1,000 different times. Those who are in direct sales, for example, like, do you want to sign here and join? Do you want to own an independent business? Do you want to become part of a team? Would you like to make your own income? Do you want to pay for your own holiday next year? I said the exact same thing. Sign on the bottom line and start pushing out my product line. Yeah. Right? And it's all depends on but we become the creators become afraid of the redundancy. We become afraid of our own messages because we don't want to have anybody dislike them. And it's like, and so but that in that fear, we are censoring on their behalf. We're deciding what they want to hear. We're deciding how they're going to perceive it. We're making the decision on whether it's something they're interested in, rather than giving them the opportunity to make those decisions for themselves. And I'm even going to say that in some cases, and I'm not suggesting that any of us have this kind of time on our hands by any sense of the means, but you may find that if you get, where I'm very fortunate, and Rose shared she's fortunate with very little opt-outs, thankfully. I maybe get one, maybe two every newsletter, but yet before every newsletter, I've probably added 25 different new ones. And so I'm going up rather than backwards. But if I ever saw a newsletter with 17, 18, 19 people opting out, I would be tempted to send a private email to some of those folks and say, what made you opt out? Or what made you? And I'd be transparent. I had a high opt-out rate this round, and I just wondered, what triggered you deciding that you didn't see value in what I was providing in a newsletter anymore. Asking those questions can actually be very monumental in A, our learning and our education, but in B, in making a connection, because boy, oh boy, that person's going to remember that you cared enough to wonder why they dropped off, right? Unless, of course, it's the aggressive drop off. And that's what I mean when it comes to also, some of us, like, if Cindy Rose says, my bug spray for my newsletter readers right now is 20% off, click this link, and she sees 50 people click through and no one actually makes the purchase, well, talk about the opportunity for her to email some of those people and say, was the link not working for you? Was the credit card processing or the too hard? Would you prefer to e-transfer me? Because the metrics are there for us to be able to work the numbers and work the data, but most people choose not to. And I don't understand why they don't, to be honest, except that it's bandwidth maybe, and or it's fear of the true answer. Well, they've already opted out, for Pete's sake, so just go for it. They've already shown an interest when they click that link to purchase. They just didn't complete the purchase. So let's find out why. Was it e-transfer? They didn't calculate the taxes in. Were they worried about how it was going to be shipped and they just never got around to asking the questions? Like, we make the assumption that they just decided they weren't interested when they got there, where that may not be the case whatsoever, right? It becomes a huge opportunity for all of us to follow through on it.
I think sometimes you just need to put down, from our experience, why did you opt out on doing this, so that if you could keep a trigger of like why somebody would not follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you write this down on your bookwork and say, oh, if they did this, maybe this is the same thing. So, I done the same thing. So is there, I hate this newfangled thing, or whatever you're going to say. And then maybe they could say, yeah, I had some difficulty, or, I really changed my mind. And then you get a definite answer, and you can get back and say, well, I'm glad that, thanks for sharing, or something in that line. So like you said, get back to it. But I think sometimes we forget that we do the same thing. Yeah. We may turn around and say, okay, I'll read it later. Months later, it's there. I put everybody's emails into folders, and I have the ones that I don't even read, and I know it will show up, and then I start reading, and I go into a spell of getting caught up, depending on the topic that I need to know. So same with other people. So you just have to remember that they're just like you. You just happen to be more aware of the volume you're putting out there. But if you're sitting there doing your own reading and newsletters, what are you looking for? So understand that other people are looking for something, and just if you could follow their pattern, then you could actually probably target them more and say, hey, I was thinking about you the other day. I know this is not a regular email, but I came across this topic. What do you think?
Yeah, and that people gravitate, and same as today, I might be on a deleting mission in my inbox because it's too full, where tomorrow it would linger and stay, and I would wait until I read it, right? Yeah. We don't know where people are at either. It becomes huge that way. But I want to suggest that we, don't collect enough data and email addresses. And I can't even tell you how many people that I go to for the first time, and it'll be like, how many past customers do you have? And do you have data on them? Are you collecting email addresses? Because it's a gold mine, and Rose will nod her head quickly yes to that too, that it's huge that way, because it's a way of touching and stuff. And then also the whole, and even the initial, like, I'm thinking of putting together a newsletter. What content would you like to see? Or I'm thinking of putting together a newsletter. Have you got a few words you can share about this product? Or have you got a few words you can share about this? Or, hey, do you want to share a little bit about your experience this past summer? Or do you want to share a little, I'd love to include you in my newsletter. Do you want to share why you're in the business you're in? Talk about being able to utilize the small business community in a powerful way that way, because it gives everybody, everybody wants a voice.
Right.
And B, and now if I collect 6 of you giving a blurb on why you're in entrepreneurship, what do I got to do? Throw up my logo and make it colorful and pretty. Done. I don't even have to write shit because you guys all just wrote it for me, right? You all just made it happen. And the collaboration opportunities are huge for everybody. I mean, Deb and Rob, you guys combining together would be huge. Even Clint, I don't know, you probably can't do a whole lot in your company one AC on, like as in throw in Clint stuff, because it's probably that you're muted. Unmute. Sorry.
I forgot I had muted.
You're good.
I've got like a small section down at the bottom, but like it's finding a way to marry home inspections and cleaning.
Why?
No,
Why did
just
it marry?
because Enya watches our emails.
Oh, okay. Well, then if you started one with Clint though, and he's sole proprietor, you can totally throw into his and not even have to stress about it, which becomes huge, right? And so like utilizing the community partnerships, because most of us have, well, except for Enyo, and Avon probably will watch you a little bit, Cindy Rose, I imagine, possibly. But they literally like being able to totally throw in one another from even blurbs and links and stuff becomes a huge opportunity for everybody. I find that I'm usually trying to condense mine a little bit because I don't know which avenue to share on based on all the different things that we have going on, right? And so I don't want to keep us long tonight, but I'm going to tell you that there's power in newsletters, number one. Number two, MailChimp is 100% free. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles when it comes to, and so Rose just said, love it. It doesn't have a lot of bells and whistles when it comes to, if your my account's been in existence for a long time, and it was one of the things I was able to still get into when I got back to the real world. And therefore I still have the ability to segregate lists and stuff like that, where I understand the new MailChimp doesn't, it just dumps them all into one, but you can tag people. But also I literally don't even load in first names in MailChimp. I literally just pump up the email addresses. That's it.
That's it?
Huh? Yep.
You want to add a name?
I don't
See,
put,
I'm Dory, right? Like I'm a fish, right? So unless I have your name in there, I haven't a clue what DW442@Hotmail means. I haven't a clue what you're saying.
but it doesn't matter to me what it means. And
Yeah.
so that's where literally I pump up the email addresses, and if they opt out, so be it. And if they stay, so be it. And if they click on something, then I might look and try and figure out who it is. But I literally 100% just dump email addresses into MailChimp and push content. That's it. And I don't worry about that. It doesn't become my contact management system. I don't worry about first names. And I don't even, every once in a while, I'll look at who opted out just because curiosity killed the cat, right? But by the same token, I don't literally even focus on that. I don't let it spin me out. Every once in a while, it'll just be like, wow, that kind of surprises me a little bit. But that being said, it could be a bad day on their end. They could be transitioning. Like it could have been someone else controlling their email, like Rose said, if they have an admin assistant and stuff like that. And yet all of us tend to take some of that stuff to heart. And I'm just as human as the rest of you, right? When it comes to taking things too personal and stuff across the board. And then, so literally collect the email addresses, literally just start pushing it. And so I think of like Cindy Rose said, she's sending 50 different emails to touch base at the course of a month, when she could do that in one shot. And I get that, and I've even prefaced mine, like this is going out, this is a mass email, but please don't let that take away from the fact that I know it's going to you, and I want you to email me back, and I want to be attentive to you. And you can put the personal touch in, even though it's not personal, I guess is what I'm saying. And Rosie, I know you do that with your writings, like as in, this is where I'm at, this is what I've done, this is what, and like Jill had shared, the personal touch becomes huge, right? I'm locked into COVID. This is some techniques that I did to get through it, or I had a total meltdown yesterday. How many other people have had a meltdown, and they're able to just share it across the board? It becomes huge. But boy, oh boy, don't be afraid to use the community that way. And even though we may be restricted, like Sion, Cindy Rose, Jill, some of your product lines too, like your new one, even though it hasn't launched yet, they may have compliance stuff. But boy, for you to be able to reach out to someone and say, hey, if you do a newsletter, I'd love to provide some content on whatever topic you're asking me to do. Because even if I say to Sion, she's all cleaning products and stuff, but even if I say to her, You know what? I want you to provide a picture of what you've done for your chipmunks. I was going to say girls, but I was afraid that I really know what you do for your chipmunks. There you go. What you do for your chipmunks. Send me a picture of what you do for your chipmunks and how fun it's been feeding them this summer while you've been locked in. Even her providing me that content furthers her business along because her email signature, her signature becomes huge. See, provided this, she represents this company. It becomes same as those. Excuse me, when we did the magazine, most of the articles written had nothing to do with the people's businesses, but yet the email, the signature that we allowed them to have with all their tags to their businesses and stuff still literally led people to who they are and what they do based on their voice, right? Does that make sense?
We
Becomes
still have
huge.
those magazines here at my office
Mhm.
that we constantly give out. And they go, oh, this is cool. This is cool. And I said, so here's the local businesses that you can sort of contact. So yes, we promote the Jam Guy, but it's in the same token as they look at it and go, this is an awesome idea. So I think that that magazine works for us to say, we are still local, support local businesses.
I actually got an email today of someone looking for another couple hundred to be able to pass out on the
Yeah.
behalf of those that are in it. So the ripple effect, now that things are starting to open up, we anticipate will be decent for all of us that way. And as my umbrella, I'm committed to doing another one come late October. What is my goal? That waits out for fall, for Christmas holiday season. But newsletters, my friends, I can't advocate enough that if you're not using that platform, it is a way of staying in front of people, and it's also a way of making your voice heard community-wise. Because when I say to Rose, hey, write me a blurb, Rose oftentimes will reciprocate and say, well, you write me a blurb for next month then. And so now I have 3,000 people in my database, and Rose may have 4,000 in hers. I have no idea, but I'll just say yes. And so literally my 3,000 is seeing Rose underneath my platform, and now her 4,000 is seeing Cheryl underneath her platform. The ability to move mountains using one another as a community and a push off is huge. Where Clint may have most of his demographic may be real estate agents. And so therefore, Rose, you writing for them might be huge because every real estate agent should have something on their tables at their open houses, and you providing that opportunity or dropping things. And so you being able to, is he home from golfing? And so being able, I could tell by your way you're like, Clint, we talked about you this whole damn time. But being able to totally work with one another that way becomes huge. It's just, I can't say enough about building community. And for those who have never heard the speech before, which will only be Jill in this case, community is about us all being small business owners. It is not about demographic in my world. Because in my head, I'm still in Arizona some of the days, beyond a doubt. And so my heart's still there too. So in a lot of ways, but literally it becomes a huge opportunity for all of us to play off of each other. Makes sense? If you need help setting up MailChimp, I suggest using a domain-based email. Number one, if you don't have a domain-based email, then ask about it because it's not that difficult to get a domain-based email. And if you don't know what I mean by that, then ask too. If you need help setting up MailChimp, email Rose. You had to know I was going to throw you under that bus. But either Rose or I are probably very proficient in, and we could set you up quickly, show you how to upload your contact list and stuff like that. And then template is literally becomes a drag and drop on what you want in there. And don't overthink it. It does not have to be all laid out pretty. Your whole purpose is to touch people. And it doesn't, you are the one who's putting the pressure on yourself to have a certain look and a certain feel. When some people just may be thankful to know that you're out there and that you care enough to send them whatever you're sending, right? We overcomplicate, we overthink the life out of everything. And I'm an overthinker too, and I'll be the first to admit that. But for funny enough, I'm not when it comes to my business. I am on a personal level, but business-wise, I'm like, oh hell, let's just try this. Go ahead, Rose, yeah.
I always tell clients, or if someone needs my help or whatever, I'll always say to them, if you need my help, if you want to charge, if I'm charging you, let's create the templates, whether it's 3 of them, 5 of them, whatever, 12 of them, once a month, however. If you create the template, all you got to do is go in there and you change the words, change the dates, change the subject line or whatever. It makes it easier for you instead of sitting there and just staring at a blank page going, okay, where do I start?
Yeah.
So if you get someone to actually build the templates for you, which is easy enough, then you're on your own. You can do it. I'm not, see on yours are more pre-scripted, right? And then you can just fill in your own spaces versus someone who's just starting off with a blank page. Because I think that's what the biggest, you know, I take it for granted, right? You know, look, I'm going to throw in a text box. Oh, look, I'm going to put in a divider. Oh, like, and I'm talking the terminology, right? And everybody's like, what are you doing? What are you saying? But it's there. And unless you know that it's there, you have no idea how to use it. So if you need someone to show you where it is, you know, it's going to cost you $25 for the hour or whatever. Let them. Then that way you can take it on and do it yourself.
Well, and talk about, you know, I said during COVID, even planning out that stuff, you know, Helen Goldman, who's in Arizona, she literally every month includes what the days mean, like as in family day,
Yeah, I do
day,
observations,
donut day or
yeah.
whatever. And so like that stuff, she could totally go ahead and populate that blurb in her email. Same as those that are sharing recipes, same principle. You can totally go and just grab a recipe for a fall recipe for October, or a Thanksgiving one in Canada, Thanksgiving one for November, you know, Black Friday deal or whatever and stuff, and be able to pre-populate some of those fields. So that way, when it comes newsletter time, you're not sitting there overwhelmed going, I have 4 positions that I got to fill here. And then when you start saying, hey, Rose, will you write for October? And like, Jill, will you throw me something for November? And like, Rob, will you throw me something for December? Well, now before I know it, I've got my content, and now I'm literally just waiting for the day to click send. It becomes a huge opportunity. But I tell you that we're doing ourselves a disservice by not staying in front of people out of fear that we're going to be in front of them too much. And I'm not sure that that should be our concern or our worry. And like I say, when I look in those chat groups and I see someone say, who is it that does this again? I think, dang it, like someone's dropped the ball by not staying in front of them. And I get that some people would ask it even if they saw the damn post yesterday. But by the same token, sometimes there's consistent, like, who is it that does this again? Who is it that does that again? And that tells me that they're not connected enough and they're not in front of the community or the audience enough in order to stay up there, right? Unlike Rob's Facebook page that I actually had to turn, I administer on Rob's Facebook page for the Jam Guy, and I actually had to turn off messages because they don't stop.
I know.
I know. I'm like laying there the other night going, okay, you guys need to have this conversation somewhere else. I'm literally like,
I never met the lady. She's just like,
Yeah, we don't know who she is.
I have to go and see her. And then she just kept going. And I said, I just turned off my phone. I had to. I don't know about you, but
I turned off my phone.
talking to her. So like, he was just all the talking.
I'm
But I
just
think the lady was hitting on him.
Hey, I'm going out to work. That's all. Money in the bank.
There you go. But it's true. Like, there's so many tools available to us, and there's so many metrics that we can use. And I want to stress too. Just add the damn emails and play with the ripple effect afterwards, but watch what people are gravitating towards and stay in touch with the people. Like if I notice that, you know, I send out 5 emails and Rose hasn't opened up one, I'm going to tell you that I'm going to go to Rose and go like, are you getting those? Only because I know that Rose would want to open mine to check my grammar and my spelling. And so,
That's great. I do all the time because I tell her every time, you know, you missed the I. Give me
yeah.
one. Seriously?
So like exactly. Or you know,
I
and even
don't.
Jen
I do
caught something today. Jen, I put out something today and Jen messaged me and said, you need to fix that. And I'm just like,
She's harder on you than I am.
I know. And I was just like, okay, good catch. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here going, damn you.
Right?
No, you're good. But it's true. Like to be able to, I mean, and we all have to watch one another's back. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about community too, that way. But just know that I think that newsletters stand to have value, and I think that they stand to be powerful. And I also think that when we start using one another through them, it becomes a huge tool, because now it's not just me preaching to my people. Now it's like, hey, you know, who else is in her newsletter this month? And I will tell you, Instant Imprints in Barrie, God loved Bruce McGlovery. And so literally he includes and highlights a different business owner almost every month than his. And I watch his just to see who he's highlighting and who has provided him with content. Right? He totally nails it every month. And if you're not part of his newsletter base, and here I am giving him his 15 minutes of frame and he doesn't even attend anything of ours, but literally he's shown in my mind, he's a community player and the community wants to play back with him because they provide him with what he needs. He literally barely writes anything in his damn newsletter for Instant Imprints. And yet he's a corporation that's probably getting half the content provided to him. And so it becomes a huge opportunity for all of us.